Welcome to the first of what's going to be a series of interviews with marketing directors talking about their media habits, how they choose their media, how they relate with their media agencies, all the things that are going on in a really rapidly changing media world. My first victim or my first interviewee is Keith Moor of Santander. We haven't had a fight, so ignore the plaster on my head. That was a fight with a kitchen cabinet. But Keith, welcome. You've seen an awful lot of change in your company as well as in your in the media world. Tell us what's happened since you were Abbey National.
Well, it was quite a complicated problem taking Abbey National and Alliance and Leicester and Bradford and Bingley and make them one brand. So, I had to take the three separate businesses and the three separate departments and merge them into one, and then create a positioning for Santander and make the public familiar and recognise the brand. And at the same time not lose the customers and the heritage that Abbey National and Bradford and Bingley and Alliance and Leicester had. So, create something new, don't lose too much of the old.
Presumably a lot of your customers were quite loyal to their previous financial brands. They'd been with them a long time.
Yeah, there was a reasonable amount of loyalty to the old brands. The problem was, though, because of the financial crisis, it really destroyed a lot of trust in financial services businesses. And so actually Santander was seen very positively. There was a lot of very positive coverage in the press and on television about Santander because it was coming in and effectively saving British businesses. One headline I remember seeing in the Daily Mail was Santander, the white knight of the banking industry. So it came in and helped. But having said that, people do still take the view that it's a new brand. People take a while to understand and trust a new brand. So it wasn't without its problems or its challenges, but we seem to have overcome them really well.
Now, you've used celebrities to get Santander well known. Celebrities, was that something you were clear about?
Yeah, celebrity campaigning has always been something that I've seen work extremely well. I first worked back in the late 90s with Alan Davis in my Abbey National days, and he was extremely successful. We have a very successful time with McLaren, and we wanted to use Lewis in the campaign when we rebranded. That worked really well because it gives us high recognition. He's good on screen. But we also linked it with red bricks to help people understand that we were building something for the future and helping people move forward in their lives. So we were building something new. So we kind of combined the two.
You've got three really well-known sports stars. How well are they working for you?
Yeah, we've now got, as well as the current main McLaren driver, who's Jenson Button, the world champion, and we've got Jessica Ennis, the Olympic gold medalist, and Rory McIlroy, two-time major winner. And they represent our kind of suite of ambassadors. They appear across our TV, in press, online. We do a lot of stuff with social media with them, as well as staff and customer engagement. Working really well. I mean, last week we were #1 in marketing's AdWatch. So, we've had a pretty successful campaign. Recall's very high and business is very strong.
Now, there was some comment about the stilted delivery in the early commercials. Was that an issue for you?
No, not really. I mean, what worries me is, are the ads seen? Do people remember them? And do people feel positive about the brand when they've seen them? So I'd have worried about it if people had seen them, thought some of the acting was a bit stilted, and then had a negative view of the business as a result. But actually, we've conducted a number of studies, as you'd expect somebody who's a marketing director to do. And what it shows is that people's engagement with the ads has given a much more positive feeling towards the brand, because they see it as almost a self-deprecating view of yourself as a business. It takes away some of the corporate sheen. And also the first part of the campaign, when the criticism came in, was deliberately designed to make them appear that way. So some people got it, some people didn't. The second wave's come along, we've switched them around this time, and everybody's very positive about it because they've seen how the gag works now.
The media world is changing so fast, you've obviously got to keep on top of it. What is your current media split?
Yeah, well, our media choice is still very heavily dominated by broadcast medium. Broadcast definitions, I think, are changing. If I was going back even 5 years ago, but certainly 10 years ago, broadcast really was defined as television and cinema, etc. Now I would include in that a lot of the different channel platforms that offer screen viewing time, whether it be through a computer screen or particularly, more importantly, on tablets, mobiles, etc. So broadcast is still going to be 50% of our mix going forward. It has been consistently. We use, built into that, a lot more things like video on demand now. With our ambassadors, things like video on demand work quite well because we can make bespoke content for different formats, and that gives people access to more rich content with those guys in, as well as product information. So that will stay a big part of the mix, about the same. Our online, as we classify it, has grown significantly, and that has become the second biggest part of our mix by a long chalk. And that's really been at the expense of traditional press advertising, which has declined significantly. And that's been halved almost year on year for the last 2 or 3 years now. And outdoor still maintains the same kind of place in our mix and probably represents about 10%.
Now, what do you mean by online? Because an awful lot of people have different things that they mean by it.
For me, online covers everything from straightforward, very simple static banners through more rich formats, right through into things that we do with our demand side platform, things that we do with takeovers, affiliations and associations we might have with Google or YouTube, right through to search. And then finally, the work that we do with aggregators to generate business through sites like Money Supermarket, for example.
Have you ever clicked on a banner ad?
I have to be honest, I've never, apart from my own, obviously to test they're working, I don't click on ads.
But some people do?
Yeah, lots do. I think I'm probably slightly in danger of being a dinosaur because I'm from a generation that probably doesn't. Where I have clicked, actually, more importantly for me, is I click quite a lot on some of the video on demand formats. So I watch quite a bit of television through players. So the ITV player, 4OD, the BBC player, all that doesn't carry ads. And they've got quite a lot of those who've got clickable content, and I do tend to click through on quite a few of those, certainly more than I thought I would, just to find out a little bit more. But it's hard for me to decide whether that's my professional interest or a personal interest, if I'm being honest.
These days it must be really hard to know which of all these things are working.
Yeah, I think I've discussions probably every day with people in my business, with our agencies, about what works and what doesn't. How much of the ad pound goes into the hands of the media owner, how much is generating real value. Ultimately, I have to look at the mix of the campaign and see, am I selling more after it started than before it started? And if I am, I know it's working and I can tweak the schedule. There's so many metrics you can look at, but in reality, you get a feel for how a campaign's working pretty quickly in the kind of business I work in that's got a strong retail bias, whether that be online or through our branches.
How closely does your media agency work with your creative agency? And I know you've had a review recently.
Yes, so we undertook a review over the summer. Cara retained the business, and they work extremely closely with our creative agencies. Our main creative agency is Engine, so WCRS and the partners within that group. They've worked together for years. They work together very successfully. We're quite lucky that we're all physically quite close, so getting together is actually very straightforward, and that, I think, quite often the physical proximity helps. So we are almost in a very small triangle between us, with literally 400-500 metres between each business. So it means that we can share office space with them, where my team can go and spend time with them, and that kind of time served helps familiarity with each other, breaks down barriers, and it means people can be very honest and direct with feedback. That closes down any kind of complicated loops around, that's going to take too much time to get things approved, give feedback, change. So they work with them really, really well.
And what about trading desks? It's a big, quite controversial issue, how they work, what impact they have, and really whether it's in the best interest of the client.
I think that's still a grey area. I think it's something that needs more exploring. I think we need to get under the skin of it a lot more. I'm not sure if the solution is clients going direct to these kind of businesses, or whether we just need more transparency. When you look at the digital medium generally, I think people welcomed it because they thought transparency. I'm not sure that's manifested itself wholly in the way that people imagined it would do, because I think new grey areas have developed, and certainly the relationships between clients and the end point of the media decision has got a little longer than perhaps people would like.
So who's responsible for sorting that out? Ultimately, I mean, you're the client, so presumably it's you.
Yeah, well, I think there's two things. I think as a client, you have to take responsibility for sorting that out. It's your money. But I think I'm not sure enough clients are knowledgeable enough and have the skill base in-house, A, to ask the right questions, or B, to have a very real opportunity to bring it in-house. And I think it's incumbent upon us to skill up our teams and start doing that. So, for example, 10 years ago, I had people in my team that understood how TV worked, that perhaps were ex-TV buyers or had worked with press and outdoor. And so the same thing happens now with the younger members in the team who understand a lot more about the trading mechanisms for digital media.
Now, obviously, big data is the phrase of the moment. There's a huge amount of data around. What do you mean by big data, and is it actually of any use, or is there too much of it? Does it get in the way?
Big data is an interesting concept. I think banks have been working with big data for 20, 30 years because of the volume of transactions and the amount of processing that we do on a daily basis. That's only been compounded by how much online banking and mobile banking takes place now. So millions and millions and millions of transactions every day. So my definition of big data is probably a little bit different to some people's, but I think it's about that augmented with all the information we can get down to individual consumer level about their behaviours and consumption habits. Do we use it enough? No. But I think actually the proliferation of data is the biggest problem. It's seeing through it to seeing where the commercial value is. In my business, the people that use data most are the guys in places like risk and pricing who help define the right kind of price for the right kind of individual. And I think ultimately if they've got the right data, that's what the business needs, and I will piggyback off that to understand the consumer better.
Keith Moor, thanks very much.
Thank you.